Bit like Priti Patel, it's time to move on. Suddenly, it was as if I'd woken up in communist North Korea. Racing driver Lewis Hamilton, under sustained attack in the newspapers. And his crime? Well, saving himself quite a chunk of change when buying his own private aircraft. Well, the Daily Mirror labelled him a parasite. The Times, across 2 pages, told us Lewis Hamilton saved money leasing £16 million jet from himself. And for The Guardian, just stating the facts was enough to cause outrage. Excuse me, everything Mr. Hamilton did was legal, as were all the deals contained in the Paradise Papers. Now, while the morality of some of the revelations, such as how some of the stars of Mrs. Brown's Boys choose to pay themselves, is distinctly dubious, this affair represents merely the green-eyed monster of jealousy, so brilliantly deployed by Jeremy Corbyn before, during and since the general election. Successful companies and individuals will always find ways to minimise the tax they pay and are extraordinarily dexterous at so doing. There really is no trouble in paradise here.
I think the moral point is the point, Nick, and actually no one is actually disputing that these practices may well be legal, but as former Prime Minister David Cameron said, they are morally unacceptable. And if, as a society, we're allowing for a supremely rich individual to set up a company through which he rents to himself his own jet to avoid £3.3 million in tax, while the official government inquiry into how to better collect tax, the Taylor Review, decides instead to go after window cleaners and decorators because they're receiving cash-in-hand pay, I think something is morally wrong with our society. I mean, why are we going after window cleaners instead of the supremely rich who are avoiding the tax that they owe?
Travelling anywhere soon, Majid? Travelling anywhere?
Travel a lot, yeah.
Yeah? When you go to Heathrow, if you're travelling out of the country by yourself, I don't know, some perfume, whatever it might be, you're going to give the VAT back, are you?
Well, I'm not VAT registered, I don't know how
No, but you'll get the wine or the perfume or something at a cheaper price because you're taking it out of the country. Course, You'll insist on giving the money that you pay on the aftershave back.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, of course you do. You pay less, that's the duty-free. So you'll give the duty back, will you?
Do you consider that tax evasion or avoidance?
It's not avoidance at all. It's what the state allows for. But because I'm taking that perfume out of the European Union, I pay less money. So because Lewis Hamilton chose legally to buy the aircraft in the fashion that he did, he can legally claim the VAT back.
Are you telling me it's morally okay to rent yourself your own jet? I mean, let's have a look at some of these. Let's have a look at some of these figures of how much money we lose in tax. You've got 34 billion of tax that goes uncollected each year, and then that breaks down, and you see 1.7 billion is due to tax avoidance and 5.2 billion due to tax evasion. The difference between those two, of course, is that former is legal and the latter is illegal. So there's lots of money now. The discrepancy between the first figure and the second two is because other...
No, it's the avoidance is illegal.
Yeah, that's right.
Evasion is illegal.
No,
No, avoidance is...
Evasion is
illegal. And the avoidance is a legal loophole. None of that covers what you've just described about airports. That's neither avoidance nor evasion.
Come to Michelle and Majid, lastly. Are you actually surprised that companies do this sort of thing? You're not that naive.
No, of course not. But I'm just what kind of moral human beings are we if we're going after window cleaners and decorators?
That's a separate argument.
No, it's the same argument. The official report that looks into this has said we should go after window cleaners and decorators. It's the same argument.
The only person I saw slightly nodding their head as I was talking about North Korea and Lewis Hamilton and jets, slightly, I hope, was Michelle.
I think I must have had an itch and I was trying not to give it a good scratch. It might have been that.
No support at all.
No, so what I would say to this, and this is something that I struggle with, because if someone said to most people, right, you know, whatever you earn, let's just say you net in your pay packet £1,000 a month, would you like me to give you £1,500 a month instead? You don't need to do anything, that you're not doing anything wrong. There's very few people that would say, you know what, I'm cool with my £1,000. Yeah, but hang on, you're not doing anything wrong. You can have this extra £500. Right. It's not illegal. Yeah. Most people would take the extra £500 in their pay. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, most people, if there was a legal opportunity for them to pay, you know, some tax, but not to pay more than they had to, they would take that, I believe.
Absolutely.
But then that goes against what you're saying.
Not at all, because when you discover a moral loophole, it doesn't mean that person's criminally liable. It certainly doesn't mean they're not acting in a way that anyone else wouldn't act. It just means as a society we're responsible to be fair. And if the official government inquiry is saying, let's go after cash-in-hand jobs, then at the end of the day, we've got to be looking at...
Right, we'll come to the People's Republic of Aberhurst in a minute. Rachel.
I think that I'm afraid to say that the key word in all of this is legal, not moral, Majid. It's not... You can't expect people not to try and save money, as much money as they can. Everyone has their price and everyone has their limit when it comes to paying tax, apparently. And I think it's just plain stupid to expect people not to take advantage of very low tax regimes.
I think we're having different conversations.
No, we're not.
I absolutely expect people to take advantage of it. I'm saying that, therefore, we need to respond to that. If the law needs to keep up with the practice.
Right. OK, then what you're saying is we need to close down very low tax regimes so that the rich people who owe a debt to society cannot take advantage of them. That is a whole different conversation.
I agree that there are two related but slightly separate issues. I just want to start by showing you the man of the show, Jeremy Corbyn. He sets out one of these arguments.
Right.
Anyone that is putting money into tax havens in order to avoid taxation in Britain, and obviously investigations have to take place, should do two things: not just apologise for it, but also recognise what it does to our society.
So, in line with what you were saying, Majid, and I agree with you, and I agree with Jeremy Corbyn, there is a moral obligation. When it comes to our leaders, we should expect people to lead by example. And when, Nick, you said that Hamilton was saving himself money. He was also taking money away from the
He doesn't
Treasury.
live here.
Because the money that you save in tax, we talk about in this abstract way, but it is depriving public services of money. The other thing, just let me finish, the other thing, which I think was what Rachel was alluding to, is that actually this shouldn't just be a matter of expecting people to behave morally. I agree with you, Michelle. I mean, no one loves paying tax. None of us enjoy seeing huge chunks taken out of our income. I'm not going to say that it's something I personally enjoy.
You've got an ISA, haven't you?
I don't have an ISA, actually.
Oh, well, you should have an ISA.
I should have an ISA.
Do you want some advice? By the way, I can set up quite a good one for you. Just sign here.
What I enjoy is living in a society that has a welfare state, a free health service, public housing, and those things cost money and they come from tax. So there is no good reason why there should be legal loopholes that allow you, the richer you are...
He doesn't live here. Why should he have to pay the
systemic problem is...
Because he wants to fly around all his racetrack.
The systemic problem is that the richer you are, the more you can take advantage of these. If you're poor, you don't have tax advisors who can allow you to squirrel money away. And remember, the poorest 10% in our society pay more tax than the richest 10%. That means the super rich with their private jets pay less tax than their cleaners. There is something wrong. I can tell you the statistic.
No, you mean proportionately.
The poorest 10% pay...
not in terms
of
I was going to say.
The poorest, not in absolute terms, in relative terms, the poorest 10% pay around 42% tax on their income. The richest 10% pay 34%.
Just do it your way. Just get in that bloody boiler suit we've talked about before, honestly. And he can have his window cleaners wandering around, and you can have everybody wandering around.
How can you defend a society in which the poorer
we want to reward success.
Okay, can we talk about the sort of general context of this, though? What do you think the political fallout is going to be? And I think this is going to be really favour a Labour government. Because even though the richest 1% pay 27% of the tax, the mood music is the rich are not paying their fair share. And this is why your Guardian is running 8 pages on it every day.
It's not my Guardian, Michelle. I borrowed it from Afwa. Michelle.
We have got to be careful a little bit that we don't fall into the politics of envy because, as we've already said, a lot of people would pay what they have to pay, and if there was a legal way of not paying more, most people would accept that. Because I know a huge amount of people that are outraged by Lewis Hamilton, but some of these people that I know that are outraged, they do a lot of cash-in-hand work. They have access to television services that they don't strictly pay for. There's lots of stuff going on the one side of the fence, which is creating this kind of moral... it's almost like a politics of envy that I see. So I can't say it again in a different way. If most people were given the opportunity to reduce their tax bill in a legal way and end up with more money in their pocket, it doesn't matter if they're a window cleaner, a dustman, or, a prime minister or whoever, most people would say yes, please, as long as it's okay.
The people who have those opportunities are the richest, and that's what makes this
And I still think these are two separate debates. between how most people would behave as opposed to what should happen. They're two separate debates.
And finally, what I would say is the reason that I would imagine that HMRC come after like the lower, the lower
jobs,
is because actually that's a UK limited exchange. When you start getting into a Lewis Hamilton that's leased back, you are spanning geographies, you're spanning different tax jurisdictions. It is so complicated to do that, but absolutely that is where they should be focusing their effort and not down here. But that's probably explained why they don't.
So you agree?